What's up, everybody? This is Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com, and today I'm going to show you how to produce with loops without being a corny little What's up, everybody? This is Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com. Today we're going to go over how to use loops without being just lame as hell, you know? So the first thing is, I see, and it's always been like a hotly debated topic, is should I use loops? Is it cheesy? And obviously, fam, people are using loops because look at sites like Splice, Prime Loops. I mean, people are manufacturing loops out of the woodwork, so obviously people are picking them up. So I use them because, to keep it 100, I do so many tutorials and different stylistic types of breakdowns, and I have so much time invested in the site and in the YouTube channel that to be creative with your own style, if you're not always practicing and doing that time and time after again, your ideas can run dry. And also, I tend to, when I produce now, like I'm producing for an artist, and the artist typically has an input and they'll want something to sound a certain way, and and in order to tap into that inspiration at the drop of a dime, which is what I need to be able to do as a professional. I need to be able to produce what is asked of me. So to be able to do that, like a site like Splice, where you could just go in and download one loop out of one pack that is stylistically viable for the project that you're working on, it just makes everything easy. But at the same time, the artist in me just can't really vibe with the whole idea of just dropping this audio on my track and putting drums underneath it, right? So I have this beginning of a song that I liked. It sounded like this. So I like that. I feel like that is something that I would write. So for me, I have Melodyne editor, and Melodyne editor works so good with Studio One. All you have to do is click on the region, press Control M, and what it's going to do is it's going to make a liar out of me right now. But I'll just go ahead and do it from the drop down menu. What you got to do is, where you at? Edit with Melodyne. There we go. When you go ahead and you edit with Melodyne and you have your algorithm set to polyphonic, you'll notice that if you have your pool opened up and you click this down like this, you'll see that there's a MIDI file in there now. And if you drag that MIDI file to a new MIDI channel, actually, it's a lot easier to do it like this. I'm just going to go. If you highlight this region and you just Control Alt, drag it down, now you have the MIDI information from this music piece, right? So you can see your bass notes here, obviously, because these are in the lower octaves, and then you see a bunch of notes going all throughout this music piece. So if you go ahead and the reason why I put it on a blank track as opposed to putting it on a track with the instrument on it already just to hear it, is because Melodyne, it's good, but it's not perfect. So you have to use your ears and your eyes to kind of match things up, and I'll show you what I mean. Like if we pay attention, like let's just pay attention to the bass notes right now, and just look at these. So we'll play the audio. You see, you can already tell, like this first note, it's a held note, and in Melodyne, it has it as two notes, right? All right, so that would be like the first thing that I fix. I'd start reconstructing this. Like I can already tell this is a whole note bass line. Now the next thing is if you have a lead that's going off the way that this lead is going off, and you can hear that portamento working, the glide or whatever the cool kids are calling it nowadays, Melodyne is going to interpret that as different notes being played. So you're then going to have to, you know, use your discernment as how you're going to get the that melody. And here's the fun part is once you kind of have this information, you can just you already have the timing of this melody. So I already know, you know, just based off of doing this already, I had already figured out that all of this is garbage down here, right? That's just the glide. And then this is how I figured the melody out. So I went from all that to working around it, and I'm not gonna go through working around it because, dude, that's the fun part. You know, just load something up and try this method out. And what I wound up with was not an exact copy of the melody, which is exactly what I was going for. Was not an exact copy of the melody, and I wound up with this. So this was the melody part that I wound up writing in, and you can see it is, if we bring, you can see where I have some differences. It's not the, you know, it's not the same exact melody, which is good. Even if it is, it doesn't matter. It's a royalty-free loop. You're perfectly within your rights as the purchaser of said loop to use, you know, to use that melody as, you know, as a different patch, you know, switch it up, do whatever you want. You bought it, right? And then from having that piece, I was able to go ahead and add these chords. And these chords are just, you know, triads built off the bass line, where I had the bass note, and then I went up in the scale. Now here's the weird part, and what I really wanted to talk about when you use these loops. Sometimes they'll be labeled one thing, like for example, this loop is labeled C minor. But the person who played this loop is, you know, a talented instrumentalist, and they were playing in a style where they were using a mode of that scale. So that means that to go ahead and set this to C natural minor and continue writing parts onto it, if we look at the actual melody that we produced, you see that this note isn't in the scale, and this note isn't in the scale. So if you start just programming in C natural minor, you're going to start programming notes that do not sound right within the scale. So what I did was I switched over to the major key, because I noticed, you know, C major is a key with all white keys, right? And I noticed in the melody that only F sharp was being used. All right, so I'm saying, okay, and this is, you know, this is a little music theory tidbit. So I'm saying, okay, they substituted their F with their F sharp. So as long as I'm in the key of C, and instead of playing F, I play F sharp instead, everything's gonna sound cool. And that note substitution is what gives this melody played up against the bass line its unique feel. So when it came time to program the chords, and I was at this second chord here, and I went to build my chord, so I had my bass note, and then I went up one note in the scale. to the second note of the scale to find, the third of my chord, I was like, all right, if I do that, I'm gonna wind up with this sound, and you'll hear it. See, that does not sound nearly as cool as when I take my scale quantize off. And I know I've been preaching the scale quantize on the channel for a long time, but it's time to expand, because it's good to start, but now we're gonna start turning up. You hear how much better that sounds? Let's do it again. Here's with your scale quantize. So garbage. All right, now let's do this. Gorgeous. So what you gotta take away from this is, if you're gonna go into reverse engineering someone else's melody part and adding chords and things on top of it, you want to really pay attention to your scale, and don't get frustrated if when you go ahead and break it down and you think you find the right scale, or it's labeled as a scale, and you go and turn your scale quantize on, and some of the notes don't match up. What you have to do is you have to investigate, flick through some scales if you don't have them memorized in your mind, which is fine. That's why we have these helpers. But go ahead and dig a little deeper, and if you find that you wind up at a scale, whether it be major or minor, that does have all those tones in it except for one, and it's that one tone repeating all over and over again, that means whoever played that used the note substitution. And note substitutions are what makes music really awesome and unique, and not sound like basic cookie cutter bullshit. And it's done in a lot of the best R&B. Drake's producers do it a lot, and you're hearing it a lot in some of the newer trap, where they're playing tones outside of the scale, which is giving everything like a really dissonant and scary feel, and that's how they're getting that sound. So definitely do not be afraid to turn this scale quantize off, and you can come up with things that are great. And the next thing that I did was I took those notes and I copied and pasted them to a piano part, so I could have this little pre-chorus section. Which is another trick that I love to use. Once you get the MIDI information, is just go and drop a piano, put some chords, write yourself a bridge. That way, that way you can add just a real arrangement into your music from using a loop. That's the problem that a lot of people run into when using a loop, and that's why a lot of people just think that using loops are corny, because you just have this assumption that all you can do is take this 4 bars of audio that somebody gave you, and most of the time the producer that gave you that sold that, they might have like a whole blown out track with that idea, and they just gave you this one little piece. So what you have to do is you got to take this one little piece of inspiration and blow it out. Like for example, here I was able, with the chords that I found, with the chords that I found, I was able to write a full bridge. I'm still not done with the track, but and all I did to write this bridge was I just switched the order of 3 of the chords. It's the same 4 chords that are in the piano parts going through the chorus sections. But that's the whole thing, is you wanna understand when you get one of these loops and you have something that sounds like this, don't just look at it like okay, this is the audio that I'm putting into the track. Like, transpose it, transcribe it, chop it, flip it around, do more to it, because just in that 4 bars of music, you could see I have an entire song, just based off of that one loop. That's what keeping it simple and not being basic is all about. So again, as far as using loops, don't be afraid to do it, but just go a little bit deeper with it. And transcribe your MIDI. If you're good with your ear, just replay it yourself. If not, there's helpers like Melodyne editor. That's a great plugin. I think especially if you're not great at playing and you're really comfortable with MIDI, I think that's a plugin you should have. That's pretty much it, man. I just wanted to give you guys this not so quick tip, for anybody who's having trouble with staying inspired, or just running through the question, what with like I downloaded all these loops, now what do I do with them? This is what you do with them, fam. So keep it simple, don't be basic. This is Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com, and we will see you on the next one.